So, um, imagine having a casual weekend picnic on the roof of a 1600-year-old military time machine.
That sounds like a pretty wild weekend.
Right. I mean, in most parts of the world, interacting with ancient history basically means staring at a piece of faded pottery behind some smudge-proof glass.
Oh yeah, complete with the velvet rope and the very serious "Do Not Touch" placard.
Exactly. The past is usually treated as this fragile thing that has to be totally quarantined from the present. But today's deep dive is into a source that just completely shatters that glass.
It really does. And what's wild is that on paper, this text is actually just a simple narrative designed to teach English to beginners.
Yeah, it follows a young college student named Wei on a quick weekend trip from Beijing to the city of Xi'an.
But woven into this seemingly gentle vocabulary lesson is this really profound exploration of how we actually connect with the past.
Right, it's like we're exploring how a single night of eating street food and riding a bicycle can connect a modern student to, 1,600 years of Silk Road history.
The author basically uses a basic language lesson as a Trojan horse, right, to deliver this masterclass on sensory memory.
So let's start with how Wei actually gets to the city, because the transportation itself feels like a deliberate setup. He arrives on a crisp autumn evening via a high-speed bullet train.
Right, tearing across the landscape at hundreds of kilometers an hour.
Exactly. You have this hyper-modern, sleek infrastructure. He steps off the train, checks into a hotel near the ancient city wall, and his very first stop is the bell tower, right in the dead center of the city.
And the text makes a point to describe this tower as being bathed in golden light. Wei feels like he's just stepped directly into a painting.
Which brings up a really interesting cognitive experience for you as a traveler. When you travel at ultra-high speeds, your brain sort of compresses space and time. You're in this modern bubble.
Yeah, it's a very insulated feeling.
Right, so to step out of that bubble and immediately come face-to-face with a massive, glowing, ancient structure, does that kind of temporal whiplash affect how you process a new city?
Oh, definitely. It acts as this phenomenal psychological reset.
How so?
Well, when you undergo that kind of abrupt transition from the hypermodern to the deeply ancient, it disrupts your brain's standard geographic orientation. You aren't just arriving in a new postal code, you're colliding with a completely different era.
That makes a lot of sense.
And what stands out in the source text is the specific vocabulary used here. The text doesn't introduce the bell tower with words like old or historic. It uses the word magnificent.
Ooh, I like that. Magnificent implies power.
Yeah.
It demands your attention rather than just politely asking for your respect.
That is the crucial distinction. The text establishes right away that antiquity in Xi'an is not retreating from the modern world. It is visually commanding.
It's standing its ground.
Exactly. By putting a bullet train and a magnificent 14th century tower in the same introductory sequence, the narrative forces you to abandon the idea of history as a fragile artifact.
So Wei has this visually overwhelming moment at the bell tower. But visual spectacle can only take you so far, right? The story then transitions away from sight and moves into something far more intimate.
The street food.
Yes. Wei hears music and he follows the sound away from the glowing tower and just wanders into the Muslim quarter.
Which is this famously busy, brightly lit, densely packed network of streets.
And the shift in the descriptive language is immediate. You can practically feel it. The air is thick with the smell of grilled meat, cumin, chili.
We move from the visual macro level of the city down to the sensory micro level of the street.
He stops at this crowded stall where an older man is cooking. And we get a breakdown of this incredible menu. There's cold rice noodles covered in spicy sauce, liangqi hot soup, and a sweet dessert made from glutinous rice.
But the centerpiece is the beef Roujiamo.
Oh man, the Roujiamo. The cook slices open this freshly baked bun that is crispy on the outside, soft on the inside, and just fills it with heavily spiced, slow-cooked beef.
Which, interestingly, the text translates for the English learner as a Chinese hamburger.
Okay, yeah, I really struggled with that translation when I was reading the source.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Well, on one hand, I get it. But calling an incredibly traditional, cumin-spiced, slow-cooked dish a hamburger, doesn't that risk flattening the culture a bit?
That's a fair point.
I wonder if using a fast food term to describe ancient Silk Road cuisine waters down the specific history just to make it easier for a beginner to grasp.
It's a very common debate in linguistics, actually. It relates to something called schema theory.
Schema theory?
Yeah. So when a person is learning a new language or even just encountering a foreign culture, their brain desperately needs a cognitive scaffold.
Like a familiar reference point.
Right. They need to map the unknown onto the known. So the word hamburger provides a highly accessible, safe semantic bucket. It basically means meat inside bread.
Okay, I see. It gives the learner a familiar geometry to work with.
Precisely. But the text doesn't just stop there and leave it watered down.
Right, it adds all the sensory details.
Exactly. Once it provides that safe geometry, it immediately challenges the learner by layering on complex details. The specific crunch of the bread, the heat of the chili, the tenderness of the beef.
And we definitely see that pushback against oversimplification later in the meal, like when the text introduces the word glutinous to describe the sweet rice dessert.
Yeah, glutinous is a pretty heavy, almost awkward word for a beginner.
It is, but it's deeply textural. It means sticky, chewy, soft.
By combining a familiar structural concept like a burger with highly specific tactile vocabulary like glutinous, the text uses language to force a physical sensation in the reader's mouth.
The source actually explicitly says that in this neighborhood, every stall told a story. The food is framed as an edible archive.
An edible archive, that is a great way to put it.
You aren't just reading a date on a timeline, you're metabolizing the exact same cumin and chili that people have been trading and eating in that specific spot for centuries. It makes the history completely visceral.
And that visceral interaction with history only escalates as we move into the next phase of his evening.
Let's follow him there. So Wei leaves the food street, fully sustained by this ancient culinary archive, and he walks toward the ancient city wall.
On a Saturday night, no less.
Yeah, and the source paints a picture of this massive defense structure, originally built for military fortification. But the atmosphere is the complete opposite of a military zone.
It's packed with life.
Exactly. Children are laughing, people are out on dates, and crucially, people are riding bicycles along the wide, flat top of the wall.
Which is just a brilliant paradox if you think about it.
Also,
Well, you have a structure designed entirely to keep people out, and it's been transformed into the ultimate communal space, bringing people together.
that is so true. And Wade decides to join in. He rents a bicycle and starts pedaling along the wall. The imagery here is really striking.
The contrast is amazing.
Below him, the modern city is sparkling with neon lights and traffic. Above him, there's a full, bright autumn moon. And under his tires are the exact same stones where 1,600 years ago, merchants and soldiers passed through the city gates.
We are looking at a literal layering of timelines.
It really makes me think about the difference between passive and active engagement with history.
Oh, for sure.
Like in so many places, a 1,600-year-old structure is aggressively protected. You can look at it, but you definitely can't rent a bike and treat it like a public park.
Right, it would be behind that glass we talked about.
It feels like the difference between reading the sheet music for a Beethoven symphony and actually sitting in the orchestra playing the cello. What is the psychological difference between staring at a historical site and physically exerting energy on top of it?
The difference lies in a concept called embodied cognition.
Okay, unpack that for us.
Sure. Our brains do not process memory and learning purely through visual input. We process it through our physical bodies, our spatial awareness, our balance, our muscles.
So just looking isn't enough to really internalize it.
Exactly. When you are just looking at an artifact, your brain categorizes it as external information. But when you are pedaling a bicycle, feeling the wind, feeling the vibration of uneven, ancient paving stones traveling up through the handlebars, your motor cortex is engaged.
You are physically participating in the environment.
You are mapping the physical reality of the past onto your own nervous system.
Wow.
And the text actually gives us a window into Wei's internal state during this exact moment. He stops his bike, looks out over the edge, and the narrative states that he felt small but also connected.
I want to dig into that specific combination of feelings. Feeling small in the face of thousands of years of human history makes total sense. The sheer volume of lives lived on those stones is overwhelming.
Absolutely.
But the connected part is what really stands out to me.
He feels connected because the friction of his tires has placed him on the continuum of that space. He isn't just observing the timeline from a distance anymore. He has entered it. He is adding his own physical presence, his own tire tracks, to the endless parade of merchants and citizens who have occupied that exact physical coordinate.
That is the real power of tactile history. And it clearly has a massive impact on him because right after this moment, he pulls out his phone and texts his friend back in Beijing.
Yeah, he says something like, "Xi'an is incredible. I finally understand why you love this city."
And the friend's response, adds an entirely new dimension to the story. They reply, "You will love it more tomorrow. Come see the terracotta army."
Which is such a brilliant narrative pivot.
It really is. Wei has just had his entire perspective shifted by the food, the glowing tower, the monumental city wall. He's overwhelmed by what is sitting right out in the open air.
And the friend is essentially saying, you haven't even seen what's buried yet.
Exactly. It reminds the reader that everything Wei has experienced so far is just the surface layer of Xi'an's historical depth.
The structures above ground are just the prologue to the thousands of terracotta soldiers waiting underground.
So after this, Wei heads back to his hotel room, which conveniently overlooks the city wall. And we get to see how this intense day of sensory engagement begins to settle into his subconscious.
The dream sequence, right?
Yeah, he falls asleep, and he dreams of ancient soldiers marching through golden fields. He dreams of merchants carrying silk along dusty roads. And he sees the city walls standing strong through centuries of dynastic change.
This is a beautiful representation of memory consolidation.
Like his brain processing the day.
Precisely. Throughout the day, Wei took in scattered sensory inputs, the smell of cumin, the golden light of the tower, the physical exertion on the wall.
Right.
And during REM sleep, the brain takes those fragmented inputs and synthesizes them into a cohesive narrative. The history he consumed while awake becomes internalized memory while he sleeps.
That's amazing. So when he wakes up the next morning, the sun is rising, casting a new glow on the wall. He packs his bags, catches his train back to Beijing, but leaves with a promise that one day he'll bring his family back.
It's a great conclusion to his trip.
It is. But as he departs, the source material pulls back the curtain and does something really interesting. It transitions from a narrative story into an explicit educational review.
Right, it lists the core vocabulary words that encapsulate the journey.
It acts as this final synthesis, testing the reader's comprehension. Let's actually look at the words the author chose to highlight.
Sure.
We have magnificent, which we discussed as the commanding visual impact of the bell tower.
Yeah.
We have crisp, anchoring the physical reality of the autumn air.
Glutinous, representing the complex textural history of the street food.
Merchants,
Yeah.
representing the human element of the Silk Road. And then finally, it offers an overarching phrase to describe the city of Xi'an itself. A living museum.
That phrase is arguably the central thesis of the entire text.
And I actually want to challenge that phrase a bit.
Oh.
Go for it.
Well, a museum, by its very definition, is a place where objects are removed from their original context, right? They're preserved, categorized, protected from the elements. It's a static environment.
True.
So how does this text justify calling a bustling, neon-lit, modern metropolis of millions of people a museum? Is it simply because the ancient architecture was lucky enough to survive?
I'd say if the architecture merely survived but was roped off and treated like a delicate artifact, it would just be a standard museum.
Right, behind the smudge-proof glass.
Exactly. The modifier living changes the entire equation. The text argues that Xi'an is a living museum specifically because of the friction of daily life continuing to rub up against those ancient stones.
Oh, I see.
The history is not preserved by isolation. It's preserved by aggressive, continuous use.
So the preservation mechanism is the people themselves.
Exactly. The source actually ends with a famous local saying, "Once you visit Xi'an, you will never forget it."
And the psychological reason you never forget it is tied directly to that active participation. Yes. You don't just memorize the history of the city. You eat its recipes, you ride bicycles on its military defenses, you sleep in the shadow of its walls.
Every cobblestone and every bowl of noodles tells a story because the residents are still actively telling it through their daily routines. The history isn't a backdrop. It's the stage that modern life is still being acted out upon.
Which is a deeply empowering way to view the past, don't you think?
Definitely. It suggests that history isn't just something that happens to us, or something we can only study from afar in a textbook. It's a continuum that we are actively a part of, just by walking down the street.
Or cooking a traditional meal.
Exactly. So what does this all mean for you listening at home? Wei's journey fundamentally redefines how we should approach learning about the past.
It shows us that history is most impactful when it demands the engagement of our entire nervous system.
It's not just memorizing the dates of the Silk Road. It's the audible crunch of a freshly baked bun. It's the sharp smell of chili hanging in the night air.
It's the physical exertion of pushing the pedals of a bicycle and feeling the wind on your face while suspended on ancient stones.
It proves that to truly understand the past, you have to find a way to physically inhabit it. Which brings us to a really fascinating challenge that the source material leaves for its readers at the very end.
Right. The story asks the English learners to think of a place where they felt connected to history and to try describing it using their new vocabulary.
It turns the lens away from wise experience and points it directly at the reader's own life. I think we can take that challenge a step further for you right now.
Let's do it.
We've just spent this time exploring how a tourist discovered the profound layers of Xi'an by engaging with its food and architecture. But it is incredibly easy to become blind to the history in our own backyards.
Oh, absolutely. Familiarity is often the greatest enemy of historical curiosity.
When you walk past the same buildings every single day, they stop being magnificent. They just become part of the commute.
Just background noise.
So I want you to look around your own everyday surroundings. Ask yourself, are there hidden living museums in your own hometown that you are just ignoring?
Maybe it's a century-old recipe still being served at a quiet neighborhood bakery.
Or maybe it's a cobblestone street that you grumbled about driving over, completely forgetting that it was laid down before cars were even invented. Or a local festival that everyone just takes for granted.
Consider what a tourist on a weekend trip, someone like Wei, stepping off a train with completely fresh eyes, would see in your city.
What is the history that you are riding your bicycle over without even realizing it? Just something to mull over the next time you step outside and feel the crisp air of your own city.
It's a great question to ask ourselves.
It really is. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a privilege exploring these hidden layers of history with you.
Until next time, keep questioning what you see, look past the modern neon, and keep finding the history you can actually touch.